Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be able to speak to you today. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. Maybe we can just kick off with a brief intro. I guess assuming people have already blitzed through the amazing first season of The Dry and be jumping in for the second, where do we find Shiv? Maybe you can set the scene for us a bit.
Absolutely. So we meet Shiv and the Sheridans in their home that we know so well from season one. It's 7 months later from the last time we saw the Sheridans at that awful next day feeling AA meeting, and everything's going pretty well for everyone on the surface. There's a few additional members of the family who have been brought in who make the house seem quite small compared to what it did before. Yeah, so there's new characters, new dynamics in the house. Shiv is celebrating her birthday at the start of the second series, and she's learning really how to be sober in this um, in this new environment. She's learning how to deal with all of the challenges with emotional sobriety as well as physical sobriety in the second series.
And I guess casting your mind back, when you first read this script, I mean, there's just something so brilliant about this show. I guess sort of this balance it has of the, irreverent humor, sometimes like laugh out loud funny, but it's also dealing with some genuine issues in actually quite an earnest way, sort of when you dig beneath the surface. So when you first picked up that script, what really drew you to the show?
I think you've said two words there that for me really means an awful lot when you pick up a script: earnestness, honesty, truthfulness, and also the balance of it. It wasn't one thing or the other. I couldn't put it into a box. I knew that once I started exploring Shiv that I would keep exploring it. And that's when you know you've got a really good character on your hands. And I found the script surprising, very funny, relatable, and also there was a lot of it on a first reading that I wanted to know more about. So it gave me it sparked off my curiosity creatively. So it was the full package for me to read it as an actor.
And I guess I also had that feeling, I mean, being a British millennial, a little bit like when I watched Fleabag of, wow, I don't feel like I've seen a female character represented like this. And it's just kind of working in that, sort of messy space of, sometimes she does things that's sort of kind of unlikable, but you're also really rooting for her and you sort of understand her and with her flaws and with all her attributes as well. How did you see Shiv, and how could you relate to her, and how is she very different to you? And well, probably in lots of ways, but where could you connect with her?
I agree. I hadn't seen a lot of characters like Shiv portrayed. We are still just seeing lead female roles, and lead female roles that aren't about being a mother or being of service, I suppose, to another character in the play or the book or the film or whatever it is, that the story that we're telling. So for me, that was first and foremost really important. It was impressive. Shiv isn't perfect. None of us are as humans. She's very human. She's very flawed. She has a lot of character defects. She doesn't even know herself what some of those are, but she's willing and trying and really searching in her own way for a place to feel like she belongs, a place that she can call home, and a place where she feels like she is validated and valued. I know what it's like to come home from London having not been where I thought I should have been. As I was in my 20s at the time, Shiv was in her 30s. You know, the expectation I think that society has of females at any given point in their life, but particularly 20s and 30s, and I just really love the way Nancy has dealt with that, and how she very insightfully gives us this gift of this female character.
And I think the other thing that it does so well, I mean, I come from a big family, is just capture with such authenticity, sort of like the caustic, sort of brutal cynicism, and the way you can really get under the skin of your siblings in a way that other people can't. But you also still feel like there is love there, unconditional love. But there's a constant push-pull, isn't there, between her and her family. So, what was it like working with all your fellow actors and kind of finding that tone and making those relationships feel very lived in?
For me, that was one of the most rewarding parts of playing Shiv, is getting to spend time with the rest of the Sheridans. A wonderful thing happens when you get a group of actors together where they share their own identification with the character and with their family, and you get to know the actors, but you also get to know what their lived experience has been of certain things maybe that's been brought up in the scripts, and that's how we understand why we're doing what we're doing, and I find that fascinating. I come from a big family as well. All families on a certain level have their issues, of course, but the Sheridans are quite particularly dysfunctional and funny with it. Nancy really does not shy away from finding the humour and pain, which I love, and she doesn't shy away either from using the tactics, I guess, that family members can use because they're the closest people to you. They know you in ways the longest and the best. They know your Achilles heel. Even I feel, and especially in the second series, I feel like there's a lot of well-intentioned interference, and that is kind of it's the push-pull, as you say. It's how the Sheridans, for me, what's really interesting about this family is how they connect and reject each other at the same time, almost simultaneously. It makes great drama.
Yeah, and it makes you realize what sort of like the amazing thing about family, but also the challenging thing, because it is good to sort of feel like you have that grounding, that support network, but actually it can be very difficult to change, to progress. I mean, and some really hilarious lines, like her mom's kind of like, what are we, Americans? What is all this, kind of every time she's trying to sort of move on, or, maybe there's a bit of that generation gap as well. So it's on the one hand great that she has her family there, but sometimes you do feel like they're holding her back as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a perspective that the audience might take, that the family are holding her back, or maybe they're not good for her. Maybe she's not good for them. Maybe they're just not meant to be in the same space so close together. That in itself is a massive question. And apart from touching on the fact that there is quite a lot of 20, 30-year-olds still living at home because they simply cannot afford to be mortgaging a house, that the reality of the world that we live in now is definitely in there. The series 2 really shines a light on that question. Is this the best place for Shiv to be? Is it the best place for her to get and stay sober? And she really has to come to that conclusion herself. I can't spoil anything, but she does eventually make a decision, and it's going to have its consequences, let's say.
And of course, this central point about sort of get swept away in all sort of the comedy and everything, but about trying to go sober. And I don't know whether that was the other thing. I sort of felt like I probably related more than I should admit to that, because I think in the UK, in Ireland, we do have this total association of pretty much everything with alcohol, any occasion, and just the pressure you have from all directions from society, which I don't know if it's the same in other cultures. And I think, a lot of people must almost watch the show and be questioning themselves a bit. I mean, did you have that reaction a bit from the first season? Were people sort of having those conversations?
I certainly asked questions of my own idea of what was socially acceptable and not, and just, I suppose, what is and always has been assumed. You're going to go out, so you're going to have a drink. Someone's having a birthday, so you're going to have a drink. Someone died, so you're going to have a drink. Happy or sad, you're going to have a drink. Like it's sort of very much a cultural thing, and I certainly personally find that interesting. I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, but again, there was great spirited conversations on set about alcohol, and people's use or abstaining from it, and the impact that has on people's lives, and I do think that there is a bit of a taboo about alcoholism. And I feel like what Nancy has done is, by using a young woman who on the surface level seems like she's grand, and using this as the catalyst to show the disease of alcoholism. I really hope that continues to ask questions of the audience, or that they may reflect on their own thoughts about it, and any prejudices that go along with that.
Yeah, because I feel like even when you're watching it, you sort of feel like Shiv's maybe your friend, when she's like in all those, how many different scenarios is someone almost trying to force her to have a drink or persuade her? And you're almost like, oh, go on, just have one, or just order a drink. And you're like, oh, gosh, why do I feel like that? So that's what I think is very clever about it, because it really puts you in that position. Say, if that was your friend, how would you react? Would you sort of be like, okay, yeah, a lemonade's fine? Or would you sort of be trying to persuade? So I think that's quite an important, point to sort of raise in people's minds.
Definitely.
Ultimately, what do you hope people take away from the show? I guess it's kind of a mixture of all the things we've talked about, make them laugh, but also sort of make them think.
It's exactly what we've just talked about, a little mixture of everything. It should do what all TV shows do, in a sense that it allows you to escape a little bit from your own life, but then in ways reflect, in some ways help you understand the world better. That's what acting does for me. When I get a character and I read other people's words, it helps me understand my own world, and my own thought processes better. So above all else, people really enjoy watching it, you know, and that it moves something in them. But enjoyment is the key.
And you've already done so many different things. I know you've done a lot of theatre, writing your own stuff. Of course, The Lovers with Johnny Flynn. What have been some of the highlights of those? And what's coming up next? More theatre, more film, TV?
Definitely being able to perform David Ireland's words highlight, has been a highlight for sure. Getting back into a series which has already been established, in terms of getting back into the dry, and having that experience of coming back to something I just absolutely loved it. It was just so enjoyable, and there was a sense of foundation that had been built that allowed me to grow creatively, and that was amazing. And as for the future, who knows? I don't know yet.
Well, can't wait to see what you do next. So thank you so much for sharing all that with me. And I really can't wait for everyone to get stuck into season 2 of The Dry. Thanks a lot.